Hi, welcome to this discussion on WION World is One. I'm Isha Hanspal. UK's Foreign Secretary David Lammy and the US Secretary of State Antony Blinken made a trip to Ukraine on Wednesday, that is today. They are set to meet senior Kyiv officials and the Ukrainian president to discuss what Kyiv needs to achieve its goals against Russia at this quote-unquote critical moment in its war with Russia. A little background here. Western powers have said that Iran has delivered short-range ballistic missiles to Moscow, to which Antony Blinken has said that Iran will be facing consequences in the form of further sanctions, including additional measures on Iran air. The United States is also working on allowing Ukraine to use long-range missiles against Russia. Joe Biden has said that they are working on the possibility of lifting restrictions on the use of US-made weapons. I'm going to take this moment here to introduce my guest today, Mr. Marko Mihkelson. Mr. Mihkelson is the chairman of the Foreign Affairs Committee of the Estonian Parliament. Good to have you with us, sir. Now, despite repeated appeals from Ukraine, the United States has hitherto imposed restrictions on the use of long-range weaponry, such as the ATACMS and the Storm Shadow missiles, with the primary aim of preventing deep strikes inside Russia, a strategy intended to avoid further escalation. Now Washington, in recent months, has shifted away from a blanket ban on the use of US-supplied weapons to attack Russian territory, allowing Ukraine to deploy them for defensive strikes. How do you view United States' latest comments? How do you foresee David Lammy's and Antony Blinken's visit to Ukraine? Do you suppose the US will sign off on the use of these missiles?
Absolutely. I agree with your analysis that we have reached a turning point, perhaps in this war, and specifically news which coming from Tehran or about Iran's supply of ballistic missiles to Russia. We know that before that, North Korea has supplied also ammunition and ballistic missiles for Russia to use against Ukraine, and Russia is using North Korean missiles already on the battleground. So I think that this visit of both ministers to Kiev is pivotal in this war, and Ukrainians needs to get lifted off all the restrictions of using weaponry, including also long-distance ammunition or weaponry to hit Russian airfields or other legitimate military targets, which allow Ukraine to defend its skies and also to defend its country. So it is a pivotal moment, and I hope that ministers will give a very positive signal to Kiev today.
Vyacheslav Volodin, the Speaker of Russia's Duma, which is the lower house of parliament, has said that Washington and other European states are becoming parties to the war in Ukraine. He said Russia will consider the United States and its allies to be parties to the Ukraine war, and Moscow will use more powerful weapons if the West allows Ukraine to use long-range weapons for strikes deep into Russia. Do you see a further escalation in the war happening, as was possibly thought of by the United States with the lifting of the ban?
No, I don't see that that could lead to any major escalation, because what we have seen during the last 2.5 years, Russia has constantly escalated themselves, and they have not changed the strategy, which is to annihilate the entire nation from political map. Their strategic aim is to destroy statehood of Ukraine, and this is obviously Ukraine has a legitimate right to defend and also to use weaponry to defend itself, as Russia is using not only their own homemade weaponry, but also, as I mentioned, the weaponry coming in from North Korea and from Iran. Don't forget that Iran supplied already 2 years ago to Russia Shahed drones, what Russia is extensively using against civilian infrastructure in Ukraine. So it's all these rhetorics you mentioned from Moscow is in a way baseless in terms of what is going on right now in this war.
On the topic of Iran, while Iran called the Western statements false and misleading, where does Iran feature in this mix for you?
We have seen during last couple of years or more that the ties between Moscow and Tehran have grown significantly closer, and there is a behind the scenes, obviously, a very close cooperation in terms of keeping up or supporting each other's interest in different wars. Don't forget that Iran is very much interested, obviously, also of Russia's support when it comes to war in Gaza or tensions against the threats against Israel. So these two wars, war in Ukraine and war in the Middle East, obviously are linked, and linked also through this cooperation I mentioned of Russia and Iran. So this is extremely important that global partners and allies who value the rule-based world order, not only Western countries, should make whatever possible to restrict Iran to act as a fueling party of war in Europe.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Marko Mihkelson, for your insights and, more importantly, for giving us your time. Have a good day.
Thank you.
For all the latest news, download the WION app and subscribe to our YouTube channel.